Welcome back to Future Classics. My name is Becky Evans and today we're going to take a look at the Vauxhall Monaro V8. The Monaro is probably Australia's most iconic nameplate. It originally appeared in the 1960s but was revived in 2001 based on the original VX Commodore. A smooth four-seater coupe with an LS1 V8 engine, which was originally seen in the C5 Corvette, but this time it was now matched with a 6-speed Tremec T56 transmission. Word of the revived Monaro started to spread, and Holden's sister company Vauxhall then started to offer Monaros in the UK. The Monaro represented a very left-field alternative to the BMW M3. It offered similar performance, but it was 2/3 of the cost. Now, if you're rid of a yob like me, 330 brake horsepower, rear-wheel drive, a limited slip differential, means that this car was perfect for sideways action on a track. But this small block single cam V8 had a very different character to the screaming straight six of the E46 M3. This was more of a long distance GT car than sports car. It had an enormous 75 litre fuel tank and also a pillowy soft ride.
My name's Andy. This is my Vauxhall Monaro, which has been rebadged as a Holden. A friend of mine about 10 years ago sadly passed away, and before he did, he wanted me to have it. I did buy it off his wife, but that's the reason I've got it, and that's the reason why I've still got it, because he was a good friend of mine. Originally it comes with, this is an 04 car, and they came with 330 horsepower. It's a 5.7 litre V8, manual 6-speed transmission, so it's a rear-wheel drive car. It's basically a muscle car, built in Australia, sold in the States as a GTO, sold in the UK as a Vauxhall Monaro. So my first mods were not horsepower, but braking. So I put AP brakes on it, which was a kit available for the Monaro, made by AP. So it's got 360mm discs on the front, 6-pot calipers, 345 rear discs and 4-pot calipers. I put a quick rack on it. Put the pedal suspension on, which is a full coilover kit, and lowered it, and that made it look nice. Then we got the Apex wheels, which actually are a BMW style wheel, made in California. It's the same PCD, so that kind of set it off. Then I started playing with the power a little bit. We initially moved it up with a throttle body, some high ratio rockers, and a MAF sensor, and we pushed it up to 370 horsepower. Then I put the first supercharger on it, which made 520 horsepower. And now it's been fully rebuilt with a bigger supercharger, LS2 heads, which are CNC ported, long tube headers, blower cam, new pistons, new rods, all stud kit, completely worked, and now it makes to around about 7. I'm no stranger to V8, so this is my road car. It's got about 700 horsepower. Weekend-wise, I race a 3,000 horsepower supercharged 69 Camaro, which is full tube frame, carbon bodied, runs a quarter mile in 5.8 seconds, 246 mile an hour. I'm also 7-time British Motorsport UK champion. I've been doing it a long time. What I enjoy most about driving this car is it always puts a smile on your face. It's a real torquey engine. Because it's supercharged, you've got a flat torque curve. The Monaros are very easy to work on. There's lots of parts out there for them if you hunt around, either Australia or the States. The LS engine, which is an American engine, there's so many parts available and tuning parts that it's really easy to modify these engines actually. If you've got someone who's into cars, they'll know what a Monaro is, or they'll know it's a Holden. People who aren't quite so much into cars, they wonder what it is. They can hear it's a V8 and they'll ask what it is it supercharged, etc. So yeah, it's a nice little Q car really. If the roads are damp and wet, with the tyres that I run on it, you've got to be a little bit careful. So no, I haven't had any major moments in it at all actually yet. Apart from one at Goodwood actually, where I did spin off at Ford Water at about 125 mile an hour into the inside field. So I've become a very fast lawnmower for a while. And then I had the drive of shame going the wrong way around the track, following the course car back, so everyone knew that I'd screwed up. The interesting thing about the Monaros, from a point of view of purchasing, is that there's a few cars out there that this applies to. If they're stock, they're cheaper. If they're modified, they go for more money. Typically, they've gone up in value over the last 10 years. You used to be able to buy a modified one for between 7,000 and 9,000. You can still buy an unmodified one for a similar amount of money, but if you want one that's got the brakes, the supercharger, all the little toys on it, then probably you're going to be 13 up. Do I think this car is a future classic? Yeah, potentially it is. I mean, the interesting thing about the Monaro is it's actually a relatively low spec car. From what I mean by that is that the build quality isn't the same as a BMW or a Merc, but that doesn't matter because the other things it's got override that, so it's great. And I think they are a classic. There's not that many around. I mean, there's more modern Mustangs on the road now than there are Monaros. We see them occasionally. You'll see maybe a VXR8, which is the following model from this, but very seldom. So yeah, I think they're already a classic, and they're definitely going up in value.
I've driven a good few V8s in my time, and every single one of them has a different characteristic. To me, this is pure Australian power. The Vauxhall Holden Monaro is just, good Lord. Sometimes you drive a car and you immediately get a feel for it and you're like, okay, this is a bit of a beast. It's got a bit of poke to it. And then when you start to scratch the surface a little bit and you realise that it has this LS1 engine, you know, really harking back to the Holden V8s, the Commodores, the Australian heritage in the racing. One of my favourite things to do when I was younger was to watch the Australian supercar V8s. They were just absolutely captivating. These big, bulky machines that were just flying around the track. So when I'm driving this now, all I can imagine to myself is that's exactly what I'm driving. I'm driving a bit of Australian V8 supercar goodness. Now this one isn't exactly standard. I know Andy Robertson very well, and he's unassuming, just like the car is, but if you scratch just below the surface, you realise that this man is absolutely no stranger to V8s. He knows his way around them, and my goodness, was this car never going to stay stock. This car actually comes with an LS1 as stock, seen in the C5 Corvette. And the thing about these engines they are highly, highly modifiable. The US market with these LS1s all the way up to LSX have just got so many aftermarket parts that are available for them that when this came out, it was like, oh my goodness, for a relatively cheap price, you could have such a tunable engine which could unlock so much power potential in it. This one here is running around 700 horsepower, you know, casual. The standard road cars are around 300 brake horsepower, but Andy's one here, as I said, is running about 700, as it's got the 2300 Magnuson supercharger on it. You know, it's got Marla rods in it. He's gone to town because there's a man that knows his V8. It really does feel like a brute. The thing about these V8s is they've got such a soundtrack to them, just raw power. I'm enjoying going through the gears. It feels like quite a big car, but you know what? When you're having a little bit of a mess about first, second, third gear, it's got wicked pull to it. But you can imagine how these cars were built to drive the length and breadth of Australia. So once you pop it into fourth, fifth, sixth, it's actually very comfortable and very manageable. I don't feel at any point like this car is the beast that it could be. I think it's the ultimate sleeper in my eyes. I'd love to see what this car is like on a track. I know that Andy and his son Luke take it to Goodwood and they race it around, and they actually got a 1:30 on the Goodwood Motor Circuit. So that shows you this thing really does shift. The steering feels quite light. It's got quite a nice bit of feedback to it. And as I say, it is quite a big car, but you don't at all feel intimidated by it at all. Highly modified, yes, but undrivable, no. To be honest, you can't quite believe that they made a stock road car like this. You got so much bang for your buck. Like, there's such a lot of power, and as I said, highly, highly modifiable, which is what made these cars really popular. They've almost got a cult following. If you speak to somebody who knows of a Vauxhall Monaro, they're like, yeah, no, I've got all these parts for it, I've done this, I've done that. It's quite interesting that these days to find a completely stock one is actually quite rare because people have gone to town on them. What I quite like about them is they're honest. It's very Aussie in the sense that it's like, yep, I'm here. I might not have the sexiest interior, I might not have the sexiest seat, but what I do give you is power, and that's what we're here for, right? I think if you buy one of these cars, the possibilities are endless. If you want to use it as a bit of a B-road killer, it's still really good fun, even though, as I said, it's quite a big car. It's absolutely not intimidating any kind of way. It's got a great soundtrack to it, and it's very honest. But if you want to have some fun with it, take it on the track, you can literally strap the biggest supercharger on it, big charge coolers. You can have everything off the shelf, imported straight from America, to turn your very own Vauxhall Monaro into an Australian supercar killer. The Vauxhall Monaro is such an experience. All of that Australian brute underneath your right foot. The LS1 in this car has been singing all day and I've loved listening to it. For such an understated car, there is so much performance. These are becoming a complete rarity as there was under 1,000 of them that came to the UK. So if you're looking to pick one up, one with more miles on is going to be around £9,000, up to the most desirable with all of the modifications that you see here are up to £12,000 to £15,000. I think it's already fast becoming a future classic just simply because there are so few of them in the UK. Thanks so much for joining me on Future Classics, and I hope to see you again soon.